morning, Sue.
Good morning, Jody.
Suzanne Schreiber.
That's right.
Yes.
My big full name.
I dare say it's Irish.
Suzanne is actually French. My cousin's name was Anne, and so my mother wanted Anne, but she chose Suzanne because there was already an Anne in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what's the nationality of Schreiber?
Well, that's German.
Oh, well, where did you get the love for the Irish?
Well, my mother was 100% Irish,
Oh.
and my father was half Irish.
Oh.
So
And-
I'm mostly Irish.
Yes.
But I got enough German in me to.
And you were an only child, right?
I had one brother.
Uh-huh.
He was my only sibling, and he died of leukemia at age 27.
Oh. Tough
Yes.
on your parents,
Yes,
especially.
it was very
Yeah.
hard.
Yes.
It was
And how old were
tremendous
you
loss.
at that time?
Actually, he was 26 and I was 29.
Mm-hmm. So you were the firstborn.
Right.
And the favorite, probably.
Well, I don't know. He was pretty special.
Sue, if I had to describe you, I would say a soul of creativity. You are a musician. You play the guitar, the harmonica, the drums, the bells, and what
Anything
else?
that jingles and rattles.
Right. But you have used those so generously. I know you've entertained the sisters in the garden level, correct?
I did. When I
Yes.
was here in
Mhm.
2005-06, I did.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And at our liturgies, too.
Liturgies, yes.
Yes. Do you do this formally for anybody else?
No,
No?
and I don't practice. I just enjoy doing music with other people. And for the liturgy, I do like that. It's fun.
Was there a lot of music in your home?
Well, in a way, my father never played an instrument, but he was the musical one. And when we sat at the dining room table, he would have the radio on, the classical music station, and we had to identify the composer. So we had quizzes. It was often Mozart.
Well, how beautiful. What a lovely way to train you in the musical field.
And then he even watched, when he was watching the baseball game, the Tigers, he would have the volume down and have the classical music playing on the radio during the ball game.
Well, that sounds like a good
So
idea.
he never played the instrument, but he played the radio.
Did any of your teachers identify your artistic gifts?
I really didn't get into doing art until later in college, but I did have a great uncle who was a painter. He painted murals in Detroit on the Detroit Athletic Club ceiling and on the Sweetest Heart of Mary murals on the wall.
Are they still there?
Well, I know the DAC. I was in there one time, and I saw these paintings, and I said, I think those are Uncle Mitch's.
Well, what a lineage that is.
Yeah.
Yes. So when did you first pick up, well, music was something you did at home, but what about the photography? When did you begin the photography?
I began photography at age 10 when I was given a Brownie camera.
Oh my.
So I photographed my Girl Scout troop and family and everything in black and white. I still have a number of those pictures. And then I was the family photographer in the 50s when we were doing slides. And then I just carried it on. I remember I got a single lens reflex camera in the 60s, so started using that with film, and then, of course, went on to the digital now.
What was the camera called that you could run off the picture right away? The picture
it was a
I forget
Polaroid.
Polaroid.
I had one of those. But when I was studying in religious studies at Mundelein, this would have been in the early 70s, or even 1970, I think, 71, I came upon a book in the library by John Howard Griffin, and it was called A Hidden Wholeness, and it was the photography of Thomas Merton. Yeah.
Pictures he had
Did you?
taken?
Yes. Did you know he did some
didn't-
photography?
No.
Well, you know, Merton was
Yes.
very versatile in a number of things, but he did have an artistic side to him. Of course, his writing is
Yeah.
often artistic in poetry and so on. But he borrowed a camera from John Howard Griffin, and he took a lot of photos, black and white photos, around the Gethsemane area there. And then John Howard Griffin developed a film for him and printed the pictures, and then published this book called A Hidden Wholeness. So that told me that photography can be a contemplative experience.
You were just affirmed by that, weren't you?
I was,
Mhm.
yes. But it just opened a whole new way of thinking about photography and doing it.
Have you ever had a display of your photography?
Well, I was in some exhibits in Detroit in the 70s and 80s. I did art fairs for a couple of years and sold my work. So yes, I've been here and there, not a lot, but now and then.
And you had our sisters in school, is that it?
Well, I did. I had Cecilia Marie
Oh,
in second grade.
oh my.
And I tell her the only thing I remember, besides First Communion, of course, was that she taught us the song Little Ducky Duddles.
Little Ducky
Duddles.
Duddles. Oh my. And do you sing it for her?
Oh, I can, actually. And then in third grade, I tell Marg Hines that what I remember is learning multiplication tables and singing McNamara's Band. So.
Oh my, music was important.
Oh, it was.
Yes.
Really.
Where was this? What school?
At St. Paul in Grosse Pointe,
I see.
Michigan.
Well, the history. And so, did you enter right after high school?
I did not. No, I went to Nazareth College for 3 years, and I took art there.
Oh.
That's where I met my friend Ronnie Maher, and she taught me how to play the harmonica. And what did you learn in college? I learned the harmonica. And then
So boom, boom, boom.
And she also taught me that I was Irish. I really didn't realize all that until then. We never talked about
Your
ethnic backgrounds
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you've had 2 Adrian Dominican Lives, haven't you?
I have.
Yes.
Yes.
Will you share the
Yeah.
first one with
Well,
us?
I entered in 1962 in June. After 3 years of college, I took art at Nazareth, and I think I realized that if I was going to go into art, I needed a better art place to go in art. Not that that was the total motivation for entering, but I wanted to go to Siena Heights Art Studio at that point. But I also had 5 cousins who were Adrian Dominicans then.
Oh my, I did not know
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there were Sister Mary Terrence, Claire O'Connor,
Oh my,
Sister Mauricia,
oh my.
Pat O'Connor, who were in my mother's generation. And then the other 3, Mary Ann Stackpole,
Oh my.
Trish Brogan, and Alice Stackpole
Oh.
were in my generation.
Oh my heavens. Well, that is a story in itself, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
it is. We have a photo of all of us, which also included our Xavier missionary sister. I've forgotten her name now.
Yeah.
Betty.
Betty.
Yes.
Oh my.
Walsh.
So it was just natural that you go with that flow.
Exactly.
Yes. So your senior year, you were a postulant, correct?
Is in college. I had gone to 3 years of college,
Yes.
and then I came, yes.
Right. And entered then.
Entered then.
Right, yes. And when I said you had 2 lives, how long was the span? Because I know you left the congregation and then came
Yes,
back for...
Yes. It
for
was
you.
almost 20 years
Oh,
when I
my.
was away, but I never quite felt away
Mhm.
because my roots were so deep with Adrian.
Well, how long were you in after 1962?
About 20 years then.
Oh, my. And would you like to share the reason why you felt it was...
Well, I think I
The
was just
moment.
on my journey as a seeker, looking for my place in life. I wasn't quite sure where I belonged. So I left and I continued in teaching and then in work at Sacred Heart Seminary as a student advisor with the Institute for Ministry, lay ministry.
Were your parents living at that time?
My mother had passed away.
Okay.
My father was, and I spent a lot of the time during those years looking after my father.
Yeah.
He lived till he was 94.
Well, what a gift for him.
Yeah,
For both of you, for that
it
matter.
was good. It was
Yes.
good. He was.
But you would have music in the house.
Yes, he used to go to Bon Secours as a volunteer,
Oh, my.
and he had on his red jacket and all. And it was his life. After my mother died, he was there 13 years or so, up till 2 months before he died.
Oh.
But he used to bring his little tape recorder. This is before the days of big business in hospitals there. It was a kind of a local community hospital. So he'd bring his little tape recorder and play it at the front desk as people were coming, and you could do that at that point. So
Well, the joy he must have brought to those people.
he did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you came, who was the prioress when you decided that you had this desire to return?
Well, Donna was prioress when I returned.
Mm-hmm. Was your father deceased at this time?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you lived in the formation house.
yes, I
Who were
did.
those? With whom did you live there?
Well, let me tell you about this story about returning, because
Please.
it's such a special story to me. You know, it took me a while to realize that my call was to come back, and I think Nancy Ann Turner was instrumental in that when she was chapter prioress, and she would send me the mailings from that time, and she was a prolific writer and about creativity and all these wonderful things, inspirational writing, and so she would send me her letters. But also, shortly before I came back, I was in a bookstore, and I went to the poetry section, and I was reading some of the poetry, and I went to Rumi. And I pulled out this Rumi piece, and it said, "Be still. A sublime generosity is coming toward you."
Oh my, how beautiful.
Be still, a sublime generosity is coming toward you. So I wrote it down on an envelope, and when I got home, I tore that little piece off and I put it on my desk. Well, for about 4 years, I wondered what it meant.
It hadn't come yet.
When is this sublime generosity going to come? And what is it? So every once in a while it would surface, and I'd look at it and wonder. And then it just became clear when I started thinking about maybe I could return to the congregation, and I wrote to Donna, and she was welcoming, and I said, "This is the sublime generosity, really." It was just
That's something. It's a beautiful
such a gift
from our
I was
poet
so grateful.
Rumi.
Mhm.
Yes.
I was so grateful, and still am.
So you lived in Ratisbon.
I lived in Ratisbon. It was a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful experience.
Who were the professed at that time that lived
Mary
with you?
Alice Nauer and Marilyn Francoeur.
Lovely.
Dear women.
Mhm.
And of course, Elise was there,
Elise Garcia.
Yes,
Yes.
Elise Garcia, and then Sarah Bingham and Emily
Malaise.
yes,
Mhm.
were both there.
Mhm.
And of course the Iraqi sisters came, and we had Aman Miriam with us.
She was
So-
difficult to train, wasn't she, into our culture?
Well, it was a big step for those sisters.
I'm just,
oh my goodness.
I'm just teasing.
She adapted very well.
Mhm.
And Elise was very helpful in talking with her because Elise had the language.
Mhm.
I believe they shared French.
Church-
Did they? French? I don't know. I forget.
Italian, maybe.
Maybe
because-
Italian, yes.
Yes.
Elise had Spanish, yeah. That was something.
Oh, that was fun, though, wasn't it?
We went for a lot of walks. We
and
did
and
Tai
then
Chi.
you had there was another sister from the Philippines or Korea. No,
Not in Ratisbon that year.
Tan.
Oh yes, Tan was there. Yes.
Yes. Was
When
she
you said
was from
Philippines.
Korea?
She was from Vietnam.
Oh, Vietnam. I'd
Right.
forgotten. Yes, she's in California now.
She is.
Yes. So, did you feel young again?
Well, I did. It was wonderful. Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Did you have a ministry during that time?
Well, I had a few little ministries. One was we were going into the office book, and we did a lot of preparation and started up the prayer in Holy Rosary at 8:30 in the morning with the office, but it wasn't in the book yet. It was on paper.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like trying it out and seeing what worked and so on.
And that still goes on.
And it still goes on, yes.
Mhm.
So we were all involved in that for a while. And then I worked on intercessory prayer writing for Sunday liturgies that year, and also music with the garden level.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun.
Who was the director of formation at that time?
Ellen Burkhart.
Ellen Burkhart. God bless her.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes. So, since then, you have spent many of your ministerial years on the east side of Detroit,
That's
correct?
right. Yes.
Yes. And what are you doing most recently?
Well, I was working with the Dominican Literacy Center for almost 10 years as a publicity person, community outreach, and photographer. And that was with Janice.
Delightful.
Yes.
Yes.
And I would volunteer at the Capuchin Soup Kitchen with Nancy Ann and work with the children in art, 5 to 9 or 10 years old.
At the
Capuchin
Capuchin
Soup Kitchen, she has a Rosa Parks art studio there and has after-school programs for children and teens. Yeah, still going on. Nancy Ann is
Yes.
still carrying that on.
But you would get involved in several things, as I
Well,
recall.
I could never be. I
Not-
was never involved in one thing. Sometimes too many. things.
Too many, yes.
Yeah.
Well, your most recent project.
My most recent project is a space apart, right here on the Adrian campus. And
So that was, and I was started by many, many years ago, let's say in the 60s, by, you tell the story.
well, it was started in the 70s by Barbara Chenisek and Rita Schultz, our beloved sisters.
Mhm.
Artists, of course, Barbara a painter and Rita a metalsmith. And they took the laundry and transformed it into a wonderful space for their studio work, and then also to share their artwork and their whatever they were doing with the sisters and people who came to the campus and the university and so on, the college at the time.
Mhm.
So they worked there for over 40 years. And they created what they called installations, which were meditative spaces that, well, that created an environment where people could come and come in touch with the social issues of the time and their inner life, their life with God and their spiritual life. So Barb and Rita then went into the creation and renovation of sacred spaces around the country.
And received many honors for
They did.
Helping the people and getting the people involved for a renovation of their churches.
Yes. I think that was one of the great gifts of
Oh my.
people felt included in the renovation, even though it was usually quite a major change for them, you know.
So today you're keeping that alive.
Well, you know, it's a great blessing to be asked to do this. I could see that my gifts came together in this situation.
Define the this.
This is the new and I.
Yes.
The new and I is...
What will I find when I walk in those doors?
You'll kind of, I think, most people feel the quiet, the silence, you know, the contemplative atmosphere that Barb and Rita actually created as they did their work. So we have in Anai, there is a meditation room, meditation space that Barb and Rita created, and we've maintained that pretty much the same. You can go in there and just have a quiet time. And then the newer space is the reading room that has a little bit of a library to use the books there. And again, that's a quiet room that has some natural light. And then there's the art gallery.
Oh my, what you light up about.
Well, I mean, it has such beautiful work right now of our sisters.
Oh my.
It's just beautiful. We plan to have different exhibits, like 3 exhibits a year. And this one is very special because it's the sisters, you know. So we have 18 sisters and 4 associates represented at this exhibit,
Beautiful.
and many have been to it and have seen it.
I would imagine the guests at Weber find this space very enriching for them.
They do. Many have been over there and said that to me. And of course, Anai is part of Weber Center, and it's meant to be a space where at Weber Center retreatants or guests can go over and spend time and have some quiet and see the artwork.
I bet I'm jealous of you because you've been able to view the sisters' art that many of us have never seen.
I'm sure.
Yes.
Yes, and maybe I have this little dream of making a video of that artwork, of that exhibit.
Yes. And well, that would be wonderful to share with the world.
Yes,
Really,
it
truly,
would.
truly, yes.
Because some of the artwork is hidden. It's we don't see it all the time.
I know you're dear friends of Suzanne Morris.
Oh yes,
Yes.
she's
And
a dear.
she is an associate, a
Right.
former member. Was she in your crowd?
Yes,
Yes.
she was.
And what was the name of your crowd?
Holy Rosary?
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
Holy Rosary crowd.
And what is Sue about these days?
Well, she has worked in counseling at a Samaritan Center in Michigan City, Indiana. And she's in the process of moving to California because her son is there, and her granddaughter and daughter-in-law. And it's kind of an exciting
And a grandma
time.
wants to be near.
Grandmas have got to be near those grandchildren,
Yes,
yes.
Do you belong to the, coming back to the art, do you belong to the Dominican Art
Yes.
Association? Yes.
Yeah, the Dominican Institute for the Arts is a group that many Dominican artists do belong to.
Not just
And-
our congregation.
No,
Yes.
this is, you know, all the Dominican congregations. And the arts range from, you know, the painting and drawing to photography to music. It tries to include all the arts.
Mhm.
You know.
Even computer art?
Well, yes, of
Oh,
course, yes.
mhm.
And Kathleen Voss has done some computer art
Mhm.
that's hanging there in an eye right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you're very happy at this moment with your new charge.
I am. It's very
Director
special.
of an eye.
and I pray to Barbara, and she's with me all the time. I ask
Yes.
for her advice.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Well, her spirit and Rita's spirit will never leave that.
That's right.
Yes. When you think of the prayer that has gone on, as well as all the creativity, which you're
Yes.
continuing to do. Thank you very, very much.
I am.
Yes.
You know, when you say creativity, one of the most creative things I did in recent years was the photography. I think this is just such a wonderful project. Photography for the behavioral health units in the hospitals in Cincinnati. And Donna Markham invited me to this project. And it was called Stations of Recovery. And Stations of Recovery are a series of photographs, something like Stations of the Cross, where you go around and look at these. In the unit, anybody in recovery in those inpatient units have access to those photos, and they're part of the program.
Mm. Well,
And
that's enriching, isn't it?
it was wonderful
Yeah.
developing those, and they all have slogans with them about taking courage and opening doors and building the relationships that people can work with.
And they're in what, about 3 hospitals?
7 hospitals.
7.
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful, Sue. Thank you.
So, I mean, it was a thrill for me to be part of that, involved in people's healing, you know.
In recovery.
In recovery, yes.
Yeah. And those will live on,
They will
even
live on.
beyond your life.
I
Yes.
guess they might.
Oh, God bless you for all that
It's
you've
just a
contributed to the art world and shared so generously.
It's my pleasure.
God bless you.